Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Earlier tonight, we were blessed once again with getting to see the absolute carnage that was Rattle trying to go for the Moonbreon. And if Rattle's out there watching this, Rattle, I'm sure I speak for myself. I'm sure I speak for the rest of the community is, oh, we feel your pain, my friend. But it's funny because right after that live, I hopped into Rattle's Discord and I was talking to Rage in there. And I was saying to Rage, I'm like, I really want to go live tonight, but I don't have this like video topic or anything that's really come to my mind. And then we got on the topic of just, like opening packs and the addiction that is Pokemon. And I was like, you know what, man? I think that's a great topic. And the reason why I think that's such a great topic is because I think that is something that a lot of people in this hobby can really relate to. And now I'm just gonna say this before we get any deeper into this video. Listen, I am not a psychiatrist. I am especially not your psychiatrist. If you feel you have some real trouble or real addiction issues in this hobby, I recommend you going and finding somebody and searching somebody out with, real credentials and not just some guy talking into a camera next to a microphone. I'm just gonna throw that out there as a baseline for this conversation. But I think that everybody goes through especially a little bit of addiction in this hobby. And, for me, I definitely have my faults where like I'm very aware of what my addictions are. And one of my main addictions I feel I have in this hobby is I'm constantly going after that chase. And that chase I'm talking about is the race to the bottom. Nothing gives me more enjoyment, more joy than just figuring out markets and racing to bottoms on cards, and I love more than anything else is I love to test the bottom, which for most people, that is probably a super dangerous thing that they wanna test the bottom. I love testing like, the bottom of cards. I love seeing exactly how much, like, give there are to certain cards, sections of the hobby, areas of the hobby. I love to because in my opinion, I do believe that like everything has a floor, everything has a bottom, that eventually once everything gets to that floor, like things will flip, things will start to turn around, and then you'll see like price trajectories going up. Now, that's super dangerous. But me, I'm absolutely in love with that. But that is a major addiction I have. And that has the ability to be, financially like detrimental if you are constantly testing the bottom and you are either one being wrong or when you're testing the bottom stays there for a long time. So like that is an addiction that I have. But one of the things that I've been able and a lot of this video is I'm going to talk about some of my addictions I've had in this hobby as a whole and how I was able to get out of those. And I've been very, very blessed, very lucky. Is one of the addictions that I know a lot of people do face, and one that I'm not facing so much, is a lot of people are, collecting a lot of this hobby on debt, whether that's, personal debt, people draining their actual savings, so they still have liquid cash, but they're draining savings. Maybe they've stopped contributing to, retirements accounts. Maybe they're not contributing as much to their 401ks or their brokerages or their IRAs and stuff like that because they're putting so much money into this hobby and they're starting to find that their, I call it fun money or free money starts to dry up. Or the worst one and the most detrimental one is, growing this hobby off credit card debt. And, you know, for me, this is how I look at credit card debt in this hobby. I'm very lucky. I don't have credit card debt. But when I look at credit card debt, I say, okay, there's like X amount of percentage that people can start to get. Like, what are people doing right now? Like, what are they buying? Are those buys they're making? Are they actually taking that money, paying off that debt with their gains? But I have a feeling that people aren't doing that. And if that is the case, and people are buying on credit, even if it's like interest-free credit cards, I know you could get like 6 months or 12 months, 18 months, 0% interest on these credit cards. What my fear is that people will either max out that credit card or they get to this point in the hobby, which is what I'm going to start talking about is getting to that point in the hobby where people are somehow afraid to sell or they don't know how to sell, which I'm always amazed because I always feel that if people are good buyers, they should like in return be good sellers. Because for me, I would have, like the way I think of a good buyer is somebody that is scouring the market, finding the best deals on eBay, finding auctions that are mistitled, mislabeled, people that aren't optimizing their listings, because you as the buyer need to be finding those listings that aren't optimized. So when it comes time to sell, you know all the traps not to do, because you are now familiar with that market where you're like, okay, if I leave out, like, how should I order my listing? Where should I put the grade in my listing? Should I put the grade? Like, there are some like tactics a lot of people don't like, but you know, how to optimize your listing, how to optimize the way you sell a card. And for me, like, I'll say for addiction issues, like one of the issues I had was when the market was at the peak of peaks and I submitted just a flood of cards to CGC, ended up getting absolutely blasted on a lot of those cards. Luckily for me, I realized where the market for CGC was about to fall out. I sent out submissions at 720 per card with the uh, membership special, and 820 or 810 a card with the membership special. I never spent greater than $8.10 to grade a card with CGC. Sadly, I was sending away a lot of cards before I even got my first submission back, because I was super bullish on CGC, which I know a lot of people here will hear me say like, oh, well, PK hates CGC and all this stuff. No, the reason I hate CGC today is because of all the ways I feel I was screwed over earlier, being one of the early adopters. And I was sending cards away in mass because I always thought two things. One, I thought CGC was going to be a good, viable number two, way better than Beckett. And I knew what Beckett cards did, the kind of premiums they held. And then the first one was I thought competition was good for the market, and I felt that if, CGC was getting a lot of love, PSA would start to make changes that a lot of people, including myself, wish PSA would do for a long time. And we're already starting to see that competition has, in fact, now, there's a lot of cards that PSA are grading now that they weren't grading in a while. You think about some of like even the Japanese no symbol stuff. Like there was a few cards that PSA wouldn't touch for a while. A lot of right now, to send cards to PSA, you can send all types of different cards, and PSA at least will start looking at it, start to grade this. This is all stuff that probably never would have happened without CGC. So I like that. But then once I started to get my early grades back, I saw how one inconsistent CGC was, how harsh they were, ended up being a huge mistake. But again, that was me doing what for me is probably the unhealthy addiction, because I was doing again the race to the bottom. What kind of race to the bottom? Sending crap to CGC. And the reason why I was sending crap and still holding back all my good cards for PSA, because I thought that there would be a premium for those CGC slots because of how irrational the market was in 2020, early 2021, and the market was. But the problem was, I sent those cards away at 30-day turnaround times, and then it ended up being 180-day business times. Well, when you do what I do and you're doing race to the market, race to the bottom, and you think you're getting 30-day turnaround times and business day turnaround times, and then you end up with 180 business day turnaround. If you're going to be an addicted personality and go for that race to the bottom, you definitely don't want that sort of scenario to happen to you. And that's exactly what played out for me. Recently, shout out Joe, Echo Base Collectibles. He posted in Professor Oak's Discord. He's like, hey guys, I'm picking up slabs for $12. Doesn't matter the slab. So I just sent him away like 78 slabs. I'm pretty sure 77 of those 78 were all CGC crap slabs. And listen, how Joe's able to turn those crap into good cards, shout out to him. I don't know how he could do it. They were bags upon bags. And then I finally was able to get out of my pretty much my entire position that I had left of just garbage CGC slabs for $12, which, looking now, fast forward to today, the irony of ironies in this is, even though I told you how that was like an addiction thing and how I was absolutely destroyed, Joe ended up bailing me out. He bailed me out because I had like some evolutions Charmanders and Pikachus I had graded that hit 8.5s, things that are just bags upon bags. Or I graded a lot of like, random Black Star promos and stuff, your Urshivu's V's, and just, you name the, like super modern, bulky promos, graded those. But I graded a bunch of $1 cards at $7.20 and $8.10. Thank God Joe bailed me out at $12. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh my God, I still made like a 50% return on a lot of these, especially some of these $1 cards. So thank you to Joe for bailing me out on all those cards. But it goes back to what I'm thinking, like just that addiction, right? Like for me, that race to the bottom was an extremely detrimental thing. But now I'm starting to see a lot of people with very clear signs of their addiction issues. And I think they're very clear signs of addiction issues is going back to what I just mentioned is for whatever reason, people struggle with selling cards. And I don't know why they struggle with selling cards so much, but they do. And I always talk about this, and I've ran into this in the past. And this is a lot of the things I'm going to talk about is issues that I've ran into in the past. And you're probably going to hear me repeat stuff that I repeated in other videos. There was a while during my collection journey, and that's what I call this a journey. And during my collection journey, a lot of my collection, I feel lost what I called collection identity. And collection identity could be anything you want it to be. You know, certain sets, certain cards, certain characters, whatever, certain eras of cards, whether it's WotC or EXs or diamond and pearls or your black or your platinums or your black and whites or your XYs or Sun and Moon, or people are really into Sword and Shield or Black Star promos or Japanese cards or super niche stuff, whatever you're collecting, you have that in your collection. When you pull it out, there's a very clear identity where I lost that for my collection. And the way I was able to recover from that is I had to do a lot of stuff is just sell those cards. Luckily, the market at the time when I really decided to pull that trigger was at probably the most irrational that market has ever been. But then this is where the addiction issues come in too, where in the past, I sent away a lot of cards that, you know, that addiction of trying to go after, trying to get that 9, trying to get that 10. There was plenty of times in the past where I was absolutely destroyed by 8s or 9s, and when you're really hoping for a 10, and to hope for a 10 in any card is going to hurt you. But now this is going back. We're going to pull ourselves back a little bit. This is pre-CGC days. This is before July 2020 when CGC opened. We're talking way before that. And I grade a couple cards, send them away for $10. A lot of these cards were worth $5. They would hit 7s or 8s, and that would be a huge loss for me. And that would be a loss that, in my opinion, again, was money that would potentially be dead forever. But that was part of my addiction where I was constantly going for those higher grades. And then that was where my collection really started to lose a lot of its identity too, because the identity of the collection that I wanted was that high grade, that 9, that 10, but all these other cards started pulling me down. So what I would do is I would say, oh, I got an 8, more or less just put it away. In my opinion, it was unsellable. I wasn't selling it to just break even or lose money because there was still cards I wanted, and I was using those 7s and 8s as placeholders until I got the card I did want. And then eventually I would go finally pick up, a near mint raw copy that would hit that 9, would hit that 10. Sometimes some of these cards would take months. And in some examples, literally these cards took years for me. And some of those cards, I still haven't hit the 10 because they're so low pops for some of these cards. But that was part of the addiction that I had where I constantly had to just go after, get that better card. So what I ended up finding myself having is just duplicates and upon duplicates of relatively mediocre cards, because at this point they were now 7s and 8s where I was only wanting those 9s and 10s, but then I just kept making the same addiction issue over and over again and buying the same card. And again, I've talked about this in the past. Thank God 2020 came in 2021, because I've already said this once and I'll say it again. Anyone who ever made a stupid decision in Pokemon pre-2020 was rewarded. Trust me. If you had PSA 7s, if you had PSA 8s of unwanted dumb cards, listen, the market just absorbed all that stuff and it bailed me out. But I know, and that's why when I talk about this hobby and I talk about people to, you know, just walk with a little bit of caution, because I made huge mistakes in the past. And if I wasn't bailed out by those mistakes in 2020, 2021, those cards to today, if you pull out 2020, 2021, which again is a 2-year gap, and that is a huge period of time in this hobby. But if you pull those times out, those cards are probably still sitting as part of my collection. And I wouldn't even like to call them part of my collection because they, were cards that I've already replaced. They are no longer placeholders anymore, but it was still my addiction where I wasn't willing to let myself, let go of these things. And this is my fear when it comes to like uh, addiction and things like this, is people see those mistakes and they say, listen, anyone, anyone who did a poor financial decision pre-2020 ended up being rewarded. And I think what happens is, and I've talked about this before, is I think people see these mistakes happen and they say, okay, I've seen all these people make mistakes and every single one of them was rewarded. So, fast forward hindsight, everything looks like a good decision, but it wasn't. All these could have been hugely, hugely detrimental. And it boils down to back to that, addition, addiction where you just want to keep acquiring stuff and putting stuff away and burying it and doing all this stuff. But just understand, if you do have these sort of addiction issues where you're just constantly grading cards and you're not selling anything into the market, and you are waiting for that black swan event to happen again. Let's just call it black swan event squared, it's the second one. And that may never happen. And then you're going to run into the same issue that I had going on for a long time. One of the things that I've been very lucky at is figuring that out. And I think that is everybody out there watching this video, if you are dealing with these issues where when you look at your collection, you go, my collection, maybe you even have a massive collection at this point, but if you're looking at your collection and you're saying there's no identity to it, or you don't enjoy your collection, if you don't enjoy what you have, because anything you have acquired one thing more than anything else, it acquired your time. And your time has been, and always will be your most valuable asset in this hobby is time. And what do you value your time? So if you spent all this time in acquiring this collection, and when you look at it, whether it's sitting on a wall, or you have it in your closet or in totes or under your bed or in the corner of your room or in your basement or your closet or your attic, or maybe you got a little bit everywhere because you ran out of room a year ago. If that's the case, and you're looking at all this stuff and you're saying, you know what? I got no identity to this. I don't care about any of this stuff. You might have an addiction issue right there with just that constant, and it's in the name of Pokemon itself, right? Gotta catch them all. It's Pokemon. It is the ultimate game. But just understand, if you feel like you're running into these addiction issues where, you keep acquiring more and more, and this is one of the things that you're gonna have to learn as a collector or investor or anybody in this hobby, and it might be the hardest thing for you to do. Sometimes you have to just know when to either maybe not walk away, but you need to just kind of sit back a little bit and say, you know what? Maybe I'll pass on this set. And for some people out there, that can be one of the hardest things, or that hardest barrier for them to get over, is just passing on stuff. Because I think a lot of people have that addiction, mindset to their brain was, but PK, if I let this pass now today, what if I never get a chance to get it again? And that's probably true at a scale on some super nichey, super rare, super high end stuff that never comes up. And you could be spending months or years or decades trying to source a card. But if you're going after modern stuff and you're really looking at it and you're saying, you know what? This month I probably shouldn't be buying Pokemon cards. Or if you ever get to the point where, as your packages start to get delivered to your house, you have to hide them from your wife, you probably have a little bit of a Pokemon addiction issue. And that's what I always say too. I'm very lucky. Probably not actually the best thing, but I have the most supportive wife in the entire world when it comes to Pokemon. She is all about me buying stuff. I never have to hide packages. I never have to hide boxes from her. She's fine with it. She just looks at it as making money. But again, she sees all the fruits of the labor, but she never sees really or cares so much about like the struggles that it took to get there, which is probably like a blessing and a curse. And the reason why I say it's a blessing is because, yeah, I could buy stuff, I could just have as much stuff delivered to me and she doesn't care. But it's probably also a curse, because if my addiction issues do ever start to run rampant again and I do just start to acquire crap after crap after crap, guess what? That's going to be bad. And another thing that I've been able to navigate, and the way I've been able to get rid of a lot of these addiction issues, is going back to selling stuff. And when you sell stuff, you can free up cash. When you get to the point in this hobby where the collection funds this hobby for you, if that makes sense. So everything you do, those sales, those profits, those returns continue to compound and grow the hobby for you. That's the best thing for you. Listen, I'm probably at a terrible point personally, like for my addiction issues, because I've talked about it. I love that race to the bottom. I'm constantly looking for the turn and burning things, and my addiction there, wanting to do that turn and burn, which maybe it's a good thing because a little bit of my addiction is on more of the selling aspect right now. There's obviously the first half of that, the buying, and then there's definitely the grading part. Because, I just talked to you in the past, chasing those nines and tens hurt me in the problem. Right now, my addiction issues are probably hurting me because right now the market, for whatever reason, is continuing to like be forgiving, which is scary too. And I have to be very well aware of that. But where my addiction issues I think are hurting me the most is my personal collection is definitely hurting right now. And the reason why I say my personal collection is probably hurting more than anything else is because I kind of shied away from a lot of those personal collection buys, and I have moved into more of the turning and burning, flipping, trying to be first on to market stuff, and it's like this catch-22. I wish that there was some cards that I was more punished for. Shout out to, like, Mr. Mime out there. Mr. Mime is French. I talked about it. He was one of the first to market. He graded the secret rare Pikachu from Crown Zenith. He got that card. He opened it himself. So let's just say we're going to round up. We're going to say that Pikachu cost the entire price of his ETB. So $50. And we're going to say every single other card that he pulled out of that ETB, we're assigning a value of $0 to. We're going to say that Pikachu cost him $50. Mr. Mime is French, which is a crazy name, Mr. Mime is French, but he had enough balls to send that card away for $75 to Graydon, so he's all into that card for $125, and sure, we'll add in ship, and so it was $5 to ship there with first class, and it was $20 to ship back, so he's all into that card for like $150. I saw where that auction ended. He put it at a 5-day auction, started it at 1 cent, 1 cent auction, ended at greater than $500. I believe the final number that ended at was $513, which good for him. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Maybe I don't talk about my plays. I don't mind talking about his play. He's given me permission to talk about his play. Like, do you see how like addicting that is? That chase? It's bad. It is bad. This is a problem. Right now, the market rewards for stuff like that. And probably that card, as crazy it is to sound, if he hit a 9, there's probably a chance he would have broke even. Now, I don't know. I'm gonna throw my hands up in the air. I'm gonna tell you 100%. I do not know what that secret rare Pikachu from Crown Zenith sells at a 9. Is 170 a break even? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's 150. Maybe would have lost money at a 9. But it goes to that addiction where it's like, if you could break even at that and do all this, do this first to market, do this rush, it's like a high. It's the scary high too. And I think people just need to understand that we all deal with, different aspects of addiction in this hobby, but realize like, where are you? And I don't think all addiction is bad in this hobby too. Like, I think everybody needs to have like a little bit of that in this hobby, right? Just a sprinkling, because I'm going to be honest with you, to be super successful in this hobby, again, this is going back to me just being subjective. This is being my opinion. In order to be super successful in this hobby, in order to really be successful on both a short term and a long term, you got to be actively engaged in this hobby. And if you're not actively engaged, I don't believe you could be as hyper successful as you possibly could be. I'm sure there's some arguments out there where people could say, no, if you are actively engaged in this hobby, you could be successful, but you also need to have a love for this. And when you love something enough, or you care about something enough, or you're going after that chase constantly over and over and over again, there has to be a little bit of that addiction though. So everything is in moderation though. But if you are getting to the point where now at the end of this title of this video is don't ruin your life. I'm seeing some people now talk, and I'm seeing people talking about, like I said, that worst thing, that credit card debt. Listen, if you are getting to the point now where you're still growing your hobby on credit card debt, you are now, every single purchase you're doing, assuming you're paying credit card interest rates on this, you are now at every buy instantly handicapping yourself. You are literally like cutting yourself off at the ankles, at the knees. You're breaking your own kneecaps if you are buying stuff on credit, and every month you are now paying interest on that. So for all the returns that everybody else is benefiting on, say you pick up a modern booster box at $100 and you're selling at 160 or 200, or some of these booster boxes you bought a Bob and Skies at 95, you could sell it at 330 now, just ridiculous prices. But if you were holding on to that and you bought that with credit card, and every month you're paying a percentage on that, every single month until that booster box eventually reached up to the price of $330, you're in a way worse position than somebody who bought that, just straight up complete cash. Like, just keep in mind, if you, even though maybe on paper or in your head you're like, you know what, I made a bunch of money, look at my Bob and Skies booster box, paid $95 for it, it's worth $330. Well, if you fucking are paying interest on your credit card every month, it's probably not as good as you think it is. So like, if that is the case, my recommendation to you would be like, either one, hard stop right now, or sell some of your shit to get out of any debt you are in. Most people, if not all people out there, I shouldn't say most, and I shouldn't say all, a portion of collectors in this hobby probably I got to be very careful. I'm gonna like stutter here. I want to phrase this in a way that doesn't come off too bad. There are some people in this hobby that have enough things they've acquired, and the way the market has done, they've probably been forgiven on a lot of this stuff. So if you need to sell some stuff to get out of this debt, do it. Don't be afraid to do this. Don't make these mistakes, because these mistakes will hurt you. So, let's see. But yeah, I think people deal with addiction issues on different aspects of this hobby. And I think, the worst thing you could do too is if your addiction issues are running into just your personal life, your social life, or whatever, you know, like I said, I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed that I have a super supportive wife. And believe it or not, one of the like there is one overall thing that I've noticed from people that I've talked to, people that I do respect, people that I do think are successful in this hobby. I've always found that there is always two people as part of that conversation. There's always them, the collector, but every single time I've seen that their significant other are supporting, their path in this hobby. And I'm not going to start listing names, but I'm sure there's probably a couple really big collectors, big monster collectors that come right to the forefront of your mind when you think about like that person and a wife or a spouse or a girlfriend. Those wives and girlfriends, I have noticed, have all been, very supportive of their significant others. Because if you are going to go this path, if you are going to go this Pokemon path, you need to make sure that you're on the same page with your spouse. And again, this is my personal opinion, but if you are not there, it is going to be a absolutely shitty ride for you, and it's going to be detrimental. And then you're going to start to resent this hobby for external factors that are not part of this hobby. And that's what this should be. This should be a hobby. This should never be something that stresses you out, never causes you pain, never causes you like financial pain, never causes you to feel like you have a worse life. Everything about Pokemon, everything about this hobby should be a net positive for you. And don't get me wrong, if you want to open some packs here and there and you understand going into it and you are very well aware of the risk, and you're not doing it for a financial thing, and you're not doing it and it's not hurting you, you're not buying on credit card debt, you're not doing all, and you're not hiding the ETBs or booster box from your wife, and you're not doing all those things. If you can just go in and enjoy packs, do it. That's probably going to be like one of the best things for you, like from a mental standpoint, because you have already covered all your bases before you got there. Just don't get to that point and then when you get to that point, have all the rest of your life just crumble beneath you. Don't let that happen. And I think one of the like most important things when you think about addiction, and you know, shout out to Rattle, and I mean it's kind of a catch 22 or shitty thing that the whole reason for this video just is because Rattle is opening up all those packs that do that Moonbreon chase, which again, Rattle's in a different position. He, trust me, he's not making enough money from those 3 live streams he had to cover the prices of it, but Rattle at least is aware of what he's doing. He is Rattle is the Skynet in this situation. Rattle is very much self-aware of what he's doing. But, you know, to say, like I said, it's kind of funny to think that he was the one that brought this conversation on, but there are people out there that are doing that in a much more private type situation where they are opening that sort, maybe not that sort of volume, but I wouldn't be surprised if some people are doing it, open up that absolutely crazy supply. And like this is one of the things that I always am against Whatnot. Listen, I've shit on Whatnot a lot because I do believe that there's a lot of predatory selling tactics on there. But the problem is I believe that things like Whatnot feed into that addiction that people have. And some of the people that I have seen buy stuff on Whatnot, I I feel like they're just being that addiction's being fed, you know? And it's probably being fed on a much higher scale than I even know, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on there who've made some really poor financial decisions, not just in the short term, but in the long term. I've seen some buyers on there spend like 100, 200, $300 opening up 20 to $30 worth of product, and I'm just saying, like, how can you do that enough times and then continue to recover from that? Now, don't get me wrong. I could just live in this fucking, bubble where I'm just like, okay, most people can't spend $300 to $400 on Pokemon cards every single Whatnot live stream and continue to lead successful lives, both mentally and financially. But that's where I could be wrong. There could be a subset of people on that Whatnot platform who just have fake money, just money that my freaking little brain can't even comprehend, like the millions upon millions, and then for them to spend $300-400 in a night on a Whatnot stream is nothing to spend to open up a bunch of modern crap at $10 a pack. Or I've seen some people like they're just super disgust and stuff. Like we saw celebrations at when like the stolen stuff was coming out. We saw booster packs selling for $50-60. Shit that makes you want to puke. Or some of the real early Crown Zenith openings where some of these Crown Zenith packs were selling for $25-30, and it's just like you hear about this or you see this stuff and you're like, who's the guy behind this stuff? It must just be somebody who is so absolutely addicted to either that pack opening experience or they're addicted to like that absolute disgusting like chase. They don't understand the fundamentals of that card. They don't understand that that's going to be readily available in a couple weeks and sometimes in like the matter of 1 week, but yet they'll spend all these crazy premiums. And you just have to think that all these purchases, all these buys are being fed by that addiction that these people have. And if you're watching this video and you believe that you do have any of these tendencies, and if you do believe that any of these tendencies are hurting you or hindering you or just hurting your personal life, like I said, this hobby never, and I mean that again, never, ever, ever should be a net like negative for you. It should be all the time a 100% net positive for you. And don't get me wrong, there are plays we all make where we skirt that line constantly. I do it. There's a lot of plays I skirt that line, you know? Like, I'll give you an example. Super modern play, super relative to where we are today. Charizard UPC plays right now. Man, if you watch this video, if you are not new to this channel, when Charizard UPCs were released, we speculate on Charizards a lot. We said two things, and it was pretty simple too, and one of them ended up being right. We said if Charizard UPCs are underprinted, very similar to Celebrations UPCs, Charizard UPCs will skyrocket in price. If Pokemon is able to mass print Charizard UPCs and flood the market, we could potentially see those, going sub MSRP. And I was on the, sidelines where I said, I personally don't see that happening. I don't think, you'll be able to go into just your Target, your Walmart, and being able to pick up Charizard UPCs. So when GameStop had their pre-releases and you could do unlimited amount of pre-releases, and then Walmart did their pre-releases up to a max of 10, and Target did their pre-releases, and it was just pre-release city. And then the writing was on the wall. It was very quick. Before the first Charizard UPC hit the shelf of any single store, we all recognized what it was. We said, okay, you could do 10, you could do like unlimited pre-orders at GameStop, and you could do a pre-order limit of up to 10 at Walmart.com, the biggest box retailer in the world. And then same thing with Target was like a max of 4, I believe. Once that was shown before the single Charizard UPC hit the shelves, we all identify exactly what that was. We said that is an absolute dump, mass play. These things are going to be readily available. And then what ended up happening was I bought all those at $119.99 at pre-order, and then prices ended up retracing. We saw some sales. They were pretty outlier sales, but like as low as $60. Right now, you could probably go easily pick those up at $90. $10 shipping, $100. Like out the door, you could probably more or less walk away with a Charizard UPC today. And that's without really doing much like digging to find that cheapest price. Listen, back to my unhealthy addiction, my play in those, and if you watch any of my videos, I said one thing over and over again. I said, I do not believe that those were sealed product plays. I believed 100% that those were first to market type plays. And what did I do? I got my Charizard UPCs. I opened them all up. I sent every single one of those cards to Graydon. I ended up sending 34 total cards to Graydon. 14 of them I sent at the $100 tier. 20 of them I sent at the $50 tier. I was extremely lucky that all 14 out of my 14 that I sent at the $100 tier, I had 100% gem mint rate, gem mint 10 rate. And my 20 card submission that I sent at the 50, I ended up getting 6 of those hit PSA 10s and 14 of them hit PSA 9s. Because I was able to get those relatively quick, ended up screwing myself over because of my addiction issues, not being willing to wait that extra time. I thought if I sent at the 100, I would get them back drastically faster than the 50. Ended up being like a minimal return. They more or less came back at the exact same time. But luckily at the time when those cards were first coming back, the market was still valuing those at greater than $200. So even though I was into that card for $100 per card for Graydon at the for the 14 10s, and then you include, I'm just going to do a crazy roundup, rounding each one of those cards up to a value of around $40, which we're only at this point valuing those 3 Charizards. So 40, 80, 120. And we're going to say that the packs, the playmat, the dice, the damage counter, and all that other crap that came in. I can't believe I just called 16 packs crap, but we're calling that crap 0. So I assigned a value of 0 to that. I was still able to make money and still ended up doing very well because it was that real quick, first to market. And then all my $50 9s, I more or less broke even on those after fees and shipping and racing to the bottom on those. I think I'm still actually sitting on 2 or 3 9s. Like I still have them. So I'm still actually into like 2 or 3 of my 9s at $50 grade. And those are losses, but like at this point, those are just, that kind of just gets washed away, which is a terrible way to look at it too. And probably part of my unhealthy addiction where I'm still sitting on 3 9s that I were unable to move. And that's one thing you will find in this hobby more and more and more. And there's no denying it. 10s in this market, as long as that 10 is graded by PSA, oh my God, those cards will move and they continue to move and they never stop moving. 10s are beautiful. 10s reward you. This hobby is still so rewarding with 10s. You don't believe me? I will be shocked. I will be shocked upon shocked that the day comes that we see a PSA 10 of some graded Pokemon card go up to auction for 99 cents and receive 0 bids at 99 cents. I will be shocked when that day ever happens. Back to my addiction issues. There's probably a likelihood and there is some sort of scenario in which a 99-cent auction of any card in a PSA 10 goes up for sale and doesn't get a bid, assuming that the shipping cost on that is not some astronomical price of like $200, where the person selling that 99-cent card is just trying to like cheat somebody out of like a bunch of, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like an actual realistic auction, 99-cent, $5 shipping or whatever, for that to go and have 0 bids in a PSA 10. Maybe like a PSA 4 or 6 or, your unlimited Jinx from base set in a PSA 5. Just unlimited Jinx, some just generic, or your Rattata common in a PSA 5 unlimited. That's not the card I'm talking about. I'm talking about a PSA 10 of any card. So yeah, I'm sure that there might be like 5, but then you just pull yourself back real far and then you go, wait a second, why does this unlimited base set common exist in a PSA 5? Why does this card even exist in the first place? And then you kind of sit back and you go, okay, well, this card exists because the market allowed this to exist for a little while. That it dried up. Do we ever get to a point back in this hobby where those become plays again? My initial answer to you is a resounding no, never, not a chance. But if you ask me that pre-2020, if an unlimited, base set 5, right, like a Ratatat sells, if that base set Ratatat and have I been saying Raichu or have I been saying Ratatat? I got Raichu on the brain. But if that PSA 5 unlimited Ratatat, it only exists because the market allowed it to exist. And ask me pre-2020 if I thought that that was possible, I would have told you again a resounding no. So if anybody asks me, like, can it happen again? Yes, my answer is a resounding no, but it was also a resounding no pre-2020. And 2020, 2021 proved me very wrong for that. Again, there's new platforms existed, whatnot grew up, came out of thin air, allowed all this shit to happen. I talk a lot, don't I? All right, sometimes I gotta just take a breath, take a sip. It's so good once it touches your lips. So I live in the Northeast, and I have a beer fridge out in my garage. My beer fridge just is full of a lot of these Bud Lights, and like the temperature outside is pretty freaking cold. And then inside the refrigerator, I don't think it's running right now. But I pulled these out of the refrigerator today, and they were the coldest beers I ever touched. Like, they were so cold that, like, when I put my hand on the aluminum can, it, like, more or less ripped off my fingerprints on my fingertips. That's how cold they were. And they weren't icy. There was, like, no ice in it. It was still just straight liquid. Oh my God, they were one of the most delicious. They were so good. Like, oh, shout out addiction. All right, I'm going to scroll up, see a bunch of familiar names in this chat. I think addiction's a good topic. I feel like it's not a topic that gets tackled much. I know Jake from Pokenomics tackled this in one of his videos before. And again, shout out to Rage for giving me this video topic in Rattle's Discord earlier tonight. I think it's a good topic. I think it just, as long as people are understanding what they're doing, and it's kind of like, I mean, I've never been in like a 12-step program or anything, but the first step, I'm pretty sure, is just admitting you have a problem. I think that is something in Pokemon too, that people will just have to eventually admit that they have a problem. But more importantly, it's might not even be as difficult or as simple as saying you have a problem. I think where it can get more difficult is admitting that what you are doing in this hobby is not working. This is gonna be that part of the video where I'm gonna be super blunt to everybody, and there's probably gonna be some people who are not gonna want to hear this. Listen, if in 2020, 2021, and continuing now into 2022, 2023, listen, if you have lost money in this hobby with the heights of heights and the prices of prices and the booms of booms and the craziness that we ran through in modern product and a lot of the vintage product, you had a ton of good buying opportunities when prices started to retrace. Again, assuming you didn't buy at the top of the market, listen, if you've lost money in this market in those 3 years, you are doing something wrong. And now, if you are somehow purchased modern product, and you are down in modern product, which is probably one of the harder things to do when you look at Sword and Shield base booster boxes or Rebel Clash booster boxes, or you want to get real scared right now, you want the ring / the grudge / saw type shit, go look at the price of Rebel Clash ETBs, and that will scare you. Listen, there's been a lot of products for modern. If you are somehow down money in your modern product, you have not made money in your modern product, I'm just telling you right now in a very nice way, you are probably definitely 100% doing something wrong, and you need to take a hard look in the mirror, and you need to figure out what it is that you're doing wrong, that you haven't been able to capitalize on this market, and how the hell did you manage to not have any of your product be worth more than you paid it for? Because if that's the case, that means your price points, your entry points are garbage, and you need to really, really, really reconsider everything you're doing with those sorts of plays. And if you are continuing to do those plays, even today, after all this, listen, it's out there. The examples are out there. The market has played itself out. If you are making those mistakes still today, and you're still finding that your investments and your buying, especially when it comes to sealed modern, is going down, I promise you, you're doing something wrong. And you need to take a hard look and figure out exactly what that is and why all this stuff has gone up, but yet your investments are down. I'm telling you, you need to look at that. And people do not want to hear that. I'm sorry. Sorry if I hurt your feelings, but you're doing something wrong. Scroll up to the top of chat. I see we got Ancient Mew in the chat. Speaking of modern product, Ancient Mew, the only man I know who could actually pull Moonbreons left and right. I think Ancient Mew is up to 2 or 3 Moonbreons from Evolving Skies he's pulled. Graded 2 of the 3 that I know of hit. Both of them hit PSA 10s. We got Shadows Amanda in the chat. She said, smash that like button. That's always good advice. Smash that like button. Listen, if you guys are new to this channel and you've just for whatever way found this through the YouTube rabbit hole and you've made it to this point in the video and you're not subscribed, listen, I have a lot of different videos like this on my channel. I recommend you going down, hitting that subscribe button, checking out some of my other videos. I have a great podcast that I co-host with myself, Rattle Pokemon, Cool Train Ryan. If you never checked out that podcast, it's always a great time, a lot of fun. We got Drew, we got the #1 mod in the game in the chat. Yeah. Brad G Card says he'll make a house out of junk slabs when they evict him. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Be Cool 33 said 100% agree, PK. Show me the bottom, LOL, and it consume your life, your time, your money. Haha. Yep. I think that is definitely one of my big addictions is that I love that game. I love that game to just test the bottom, to see where it is. I love to see what makes or breaks a card. And, you know, there's a lot of cards that I own that you guys have never seen and you probably will never see because they're very low pops. And I'm very nervous that if people knew who owns certain cards could hurt the market. Now, my super modern plays, I'll show that shit all day. Doesn't matter to me. Some trainer gallery card, I'll show that. Super modern, you know, mass produced promo, show that all day. But I love to test the markets. I love to see what makes or breaks a market. And a market that I am not currently actively engaged in is that Moonbreon market. I'm not actively engaged in it at all. But, you know, we just talked about Ancient Mew, who graded 2 of those. Listen, I'm not actively engaged in that market, but I love to watch that market. And if I was actively engaged in that market, I would love to see how much I could bend or break that market. And that's the thing, too. There's like a fine line of seeing what's bending or breaking, what's market manipulation, and what's not. Listen, we are now going into blurry time here, but trust me. Power Collectible says, hey, PK, you going to the Mohegan Sun show coming up in a few weeks? I have to look into that. I didn't know it is coming up, but that might be something I might be into. And if there's a big card show, that might be something we could talk. Nick Old School Pokemon and Jake from Pokenomics are coming into. They're not too far away from Mohegan Sun. So Northwood says, I buy with my cashback card to get 5% on eBay purchases, 3% at stores, and then pay them off same day. Yeah, see, that's different. You're not really like buying off debt, you know? But again, to have that money up front is just another thing. It's like, depending on how big that purchase is, you know, are you paying off that 3%, 5% if you're doing $20,000 purchases, $25,000 purchases? And I made a video a while back talking about this is, one of the things you need to be in this hobby more than anything else is you need to start becoming liquid in a liquid Pokemon hobby. Right now, we are still lucky. For the most part, this market is extremely liquid. But when you find yourself being liquid in an illiquid market, when the good buys come up, when those $20,000, when those $25,000 or $100,000 buys, which $100,000 buys are probably few and far between, but definitely 10 and 15,000 is probably like, those buys come up relatively like decent amount, kind of, as long as you know where to look and people are reaching out to you. And listen, when those $10,000-$15,000 buys do come up, you need to be in a position to purchase them, because if you're not in a position to purchase them, you're going to have to let them go. And then the next buyer in line who does have that money available is going to acquire those and then probably be able to make decent amounts of returns on those gains. So But yeah, when Northwood says he buys with 5%, buys with a credit card, gets 5% on eBay purchase, 3% in stores. It's like, I don't care what your personal finances are, but like, are you doing this at $20,000, $25,000, or are you buying at 5% and then instantly paying back $25,000? And if you are doing that, hey, great for you. But how many of those buys can you continuously do? Can you do that $25,000 buy once? Can you do it twice? Can you do it 3 times? Can you do it 4 times? Because keep in mind, you do a one $25,000 buy, more likely than not, if you're spending that much money, it's not a graded play. It's all raw play. So now that money's tied up. Then you're going to have to send those cards away for grading. And then you're going to have to wait about a month because probably most of those cards are going to be in that bulk submission, $15. You're going to probably send that at minimum, 500 cards with your first submission. Then you're going to get those back. Now you're going to get hit with all the grading fees for 500 cards. So now you're sitting on grading fees for 500 cards plus $25,000 for that initial purchase. You've been locked up well over a month, and that purchase has made you absolutely $0. You are just in the negative on that. So if you are not liquid, you are going to run into a lot of issues buying these collections. And people listening to this video right now might say, I'm not a buyer for $25,000, but hopefully someday, if you progress along and you move in this hobby enough, $25,000 purchases can be a very, very realistic scenario for you to get into. Shout out to Dan Catchmall Collectibles. I'm pretty sure he made a video like within the last month or two talking about one of the $23,000 collections he bought. And I think that first round of graded cards that he recently got back again came back in like the last month or two. He did a collection, or maybe not a collection video, but like a vault storage, like a vault room he has. And one of the boxes in there was like a 23K buy he did. And he was able to segregate those cards and kind of put it in a little area. And then that's probably going to be a play that he makes a lot of money on, but that's because Dan was liquid enough in a relatively illiquid hobby in order to free up that cash. Some people are saying they're a little bit in debt right now, just trying to sell stuff. Yeah, it's like, but this is the thing too, is if you are leveraging any sort of debt, which you shouldn't be doing in the first place, make sure that if you're leveraging just to sell and make money, make sure the shit that you're buying and selling to make money, you could actually move. If you can't move that stuff, you're going to have a bad time. You could pizza or you could French fry. If you pizza when you should have French fried, or you French fry when you should have pizza, you're going to have a bad time. So just keep that in mind. All right. If anybody doesn't know where that quote is from, that is from South Park. So Cadle said, PK just confirmed that he's been bullish ever since the beginning and was an early adopter. Spoken like a true CGC spokesman. Yeah. Shout out to CGC. Thanks a lot for just crippling me at the kneecaps for a little while. Probably crippling a lot of people. A lot of people saying CGC is away. CGC is trash at this point for TCG. Yeah. Man, I don't want, I'm not going to do another CGC rant, but you guys could say that I'm harsh on them and everything, but I'm not harsh. I'm just sad. You ever have your parents say, you know what? I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed in you. CGC, I'm talking to you right now, CGC. There's some rep from CGC, some public relations, some spokesperson. Listen, CGC, I'm just gonna tell you right now, I'm not mad at you anymore. I'm just disappointed. All right, we got Cheval's in the chat. We got Alex Johnson says, out of curiosity, what is the addiction for most people? Is it at the opening collection aspect, completing things? For me, that addiction, for me personally, like I said, is that chase to the bottom, trying to play that ultimate dangerous game. And I'll give you a perfect example of a card that, again, the market is just super forgiving. Probably just going to again, a race to the bottom card. As I'm looking at that, and I talked about it. This is, again, I will talk about super modern, super mass-produced promo plays. I talked about the Scarlet and Violet 001 promo, both the Japanese promo, then you could get the same card, the Chinese promo with the English Pokemon back on it. Those cards, $25, $20, $17, $15 to get them sealed. The Chinese ones were like $6 to $7 sealed. Send them away at $15. Those things graded 10s all day, every day. Race to the market on those. I'm seeing some sales on those selling at $60. Again, That is a play that took like an idiot could do that play. And that's I know that sounds really bad to say. An idiot can do that play. Anybody could have picked up those sealed promos, especially the Japanese ones, the Chinese ones, could have, got them, shipped them to them, cut them out of the package, put in a penny sleeve, put in their card saver one, and sent it with a bulk submission to PSA. And those cards are still selling for $6. You would have had to really, really, really struggle to lose on that play. And probably right now, where we are today, there's not one single person in this entire hobby who graded that card in a 10 and is currently selling that card in a 10 or has sold that in that card in a 10 has lost money. And that is an absolutely ridiculous thing to say, that there's not one person who could have possibly lost money on that card. Now, every single person buying that card in a PSA 10, there is more people than you could probably count that have lost money on it. Why? Because again, that is a super mass produced promo. That is a super mass produced card. There's going to be a million of those graded in 10s, and there's going to continue to be a million of those graded in 10s, and populations are going to continue the rise. And again, like I said, that race to the bottom, every seal is going to sell for a little bit less and less until eventually we get to wherever the floor, wherever the bottom of that card is. And when we get to that floor and we get to that bottom, I will test that floor and we'll see what the real true floor is. I'll be there for it. Can't wait. But again, think about where you are in the spectrum. Are you the guy who bought that card, graded that card, did absolutely no work? Just, I told you, an idiot could do it. And that's a bad way to put it. And then sold it on to the market. But think about every single person who's continuing to buy that Scarlet and Violet 001 promo on the way down. Every single one of them has lost money. When do they stop doing that? But this is the thing, the thing that I keep talking about in this hobby. This hobby is so disgustingly forgiving. Like a card like that it's disgusting how forgiving this hobby is. Disgusting. And I'm saying that as somebody who's actively engaged in that play and somebody who talked about that play on multiple videos. And even when I wanted to do it for the first time, I was letting it slip by accident because people were asking me, PK, tell me a modern play. And I was like, well, I'll just tell you the card number. And a lot of people were like, oh, PK, that's an easy play. Everybody's going to be doing that. And you're freaking right. Everybody's doing it. Why the hell are people still buying that card? I don't know. And you'll hear me say one thing over and over and over again, as almost if I have Tourette's. You should never be buying modern 10s. You should always be grading modern 10s. And why people are not grading modern 10s, I do not know. It takes no effort, but yet they have the money to buy these, and especially some of the early sales of that card. Ugh, it's sickening. It's sickening what early sales are. And yeah, we started to see that price retrace, which thank God we're starting to see that price retrace. You know why? Because that makes sense. When the market is at least doing what you expect it to do, it's a good thing. That is a card that is doing exactly what everyone expected it to do. It's retracing in price. And thank God everything is right with the world. If for any reason that card does like a fucking Moonbreon play where it's going down in price and then it reverses trajectory, we're in for it. We're in a scary time if that ever happens. But no, thank God that card is doing exactly what we expect it to do. Ugh. I got down the Fresh Tat said, PK, repacks and repeat. No, don't repack your cards unless you're doing it for YouTube videos for fun. See, we got Felipe de Sosa in the chat. Good to see Felipe. Pokemon Collector said this video must be for Rattle. Poor guy. Nah, we give Rattle too much shit. But no, I don't know if Jake from Pokenomics is in this video, but I am gonna call out Jake right now because I'm definitely not the best person to talk about this because it's not my background. And that if you're just hopping in now, I did a big PSA, not PSA, the grading card company, public service announcement at the beginning of this video where I explained to you guys that I am not a psychiatrist. I am not anyone you should be listening to when it comes to this sort of advice. But I feel like Jake has a better demeanor for this type of stuff. And I'm calling out Jake because he did make a video talking about, like addiction issues in this hobby and stuff like that. But I would like to see a follow-up video for that. And, for Jake to expand on his thoughts a little bit more too, because I think it is relevant. And I think it is pertinent to a lot of people in this hobby that are dealing with this. And I think his last video was relatively successful, but we definitely need a follow-up. And I think Jake is a way better person to tackle this issue than me. And definitely a better person than Rattle. No, just gonna we'll keep poking at Rattle. We'll get our shots in there when we can. Rave Deep says, am I the only one who doesn't have an addiction in the hobby? I'm so over opening packs. Yes. I think you brought up a good point. It is funny the trajectory that I've seen a lot of people take. One of the trajectories I've seen people in this hobby take is there are people just continually like adapting, changing, growing in this hobby. And by adapting, changing, growing in this hobby, there is this like relatively linear progression you see people doing. One of those steps during that linear progression is people that realize like opening packs is fun, but you need to do it like responsibly and like understand what you're doing and not just go and balls to the wall 100% of the time doing that pack opening experience. And that is one of the very, very like common things I've heard a ton of different people in this hobby all sort of say that same thing. And it doesn't really matter like your entry point in this hobby. You talk to, shout out to Cool Trainer Ryan. You talk to Cool Trainer Ryan, you see some of his PSA returns coming back. He talks about some of his pack opening experience. He went through that same exact scenario where he was just opening up a ton of this. It just happened to be diamond and pearl stuff. And then again, what I already mentioned, this hobby is so forgiving. Time forgives all in this hobby. Right now, who the hell knows if that continues to move into the future? But he was rewarded for all those plays and all those, diamond and pearl packs. And, he opened up a ton of mysterious treasure and stuff like that. All right. Oh, we got Thrifty TCG in the chat. Thrifty's she's a good one. She's I don't know if I think Thrifty might have never been on my channel yet. Thrifty, you might have to come on my channel. We did talk about it before, so. All right. People are saying PK's wife ain't mad. He's not buying MetaZoo. Yeah. Alex saying, PK, what's up? Just got here. I'm sure I've been rambling a decent amount since you just got here. Good to see you though, Alex. Aaron D. Virgin says, PK, appreciate all the lives and deep dives talks, man. Keep up the great work. You inspire many. Hey, Aaron, appreciate that. That means a lot. Cheval says, oh, I'm sure this is a troll question. He says, PK, why do you think you have such a hard time taking a loss in the hobby while you've made stupid big gains overall? Pride, OCD. I think it's what I just explained to you, where everybody is seeing that people were rewarded for every single poor decision they ever made. I still now have that like almost ingrained in the back of my head in a small way, where I'm like, I might be able to recover on these. And the cards that I do feel that I am down on, and a lot of them I'm not even like maybe down on them in paper, but maybe I'm down on them when I start to take into account eBay fees and shipping fees. And then I start to be down on those cards. And I look at those cards and I say, I believe this card was undervalued when I bought it, and I still believe this card is undervalued today, now that I've graded it and I own it. Am I ready to sell it? So to answer your question, Travals, I'm not really sure. It just, maybe it is that pride factor, because I believe it's undervalued. And because I was rewarded and I was successful thinking things were undervalued at a time, maybe I probably won't be rewarded again, I don't know. It's tough. That's a good question. You really, Shavavs, you really put my mind, put it in a blender. Good job. That was a good comment. I appreciate you. Gives it some food for thought. I'll have to really ponder that one. Oh man, there's some troll comments in here. People are saying they're in debt, but this video is going to make them quit buying. Well, don't be in debt. Because I'll tell you what, when you do this hobby, a lot of the things we talk about in this hobby is investing, which we're not financial advisors, so you could fucking take whatever we say and like either listen to it or don't. And we probably shouldn't be talking about investing as much as we do, but we do talk about a lot of the investing in cards. But I don't know a lot, but one thing I do know is that if you're buying stuff and then paying debt and interest on that month after month after month, your collecting goal and your investing journey is going to be way harder and way different than a lot of the other people in this hobby. And you do not want to be going against people that are not buying stuff on debt, because they're going to be able to sell stuff at, drastically lower prices. And you might end up selling your, product for a 50% gain on paper in 2 years from now. When you start to take into, credit card interest rates month after month for 2 years, you're going to be like, holy shit, I lost a bunch of money on this. So don't do that. So Anthony, I won't even try to say your last name, Anthony, said, to be super successful in this hobby, just make a ton of money doing something else, and then it doesn't matter what you buy or when, you're a winner. That's also good advice too. If you could win at every other aspect of life, then Pokemon is just a pipe dream. Oh boy. There are a lot. You guys are talking a lot. I just scrolled to the bottom. Let's see. I'm looking for anybody who highlighted my name. I do see we got Jake's in this chat, so that is good. Jake says, invest in vintage Pokemon. Nobody is doing it. Invest in stocks. Nobody is doing it. Yeah. That's the crazy thing about, I'm not going to get into this too much, but that's the crazy thing about Pokemon. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon cards that are huge winners, just like in the stock market. There's a lot of stocks that are huge winners. And in Pokemon, oh my God, there's a lot of cards that are huge losers. And in stocks, there's a lot of cards that are huge losers. So just always good to be on that winning aspect of it. And I think it boils down to the simple thing of just fundamentals. As terrible as people want to say, like, when you start to break down products or you break down cards, it comes down to fundamentals. And when you look at stocks, it's the same thing. When you break down these stocks, it comes down to fundamentals. Now, can you do the single stock route, like, and be super successful? Sure. If all your buys were Amazon, and all your buys were Apple, and all your buys were, Tesla, and then you sold Tesla like right before the big crash and stuff like that, and you were very good at timing in the market, and your buys were only like, the good stocks, you did really well. But if you were that person out there who's been, said, I believed in General Electric since 1988, and then I like General Electrics in 1996, and I think General Electrics, after the crash of 2009, I think General Electrics was still a good company, and then he held on to it in 2015 and 2020, and you're like, it's a dividend stock. Guess what? You probably could have spent your money in better places. That's probably a great company. Probably that company, to you on paper, has great fundamentals. When you look at that stock on paper and you start to say, holy crap, this stock is about worth the liquidation value of this company. It might look like a great play, but it didn't work out that way, did it? So there's a lot of shitty things that happen. So even though stuff has good fundamentals sometimes, doesn't mean it's always going to pay off for you. Let's see. We got Mason Berry in the chat. Love to see Mason Berry in the chat. Oh, my only problem with Mason Berry is Mason Berry never hits the like button. So I always say, I'll say it before and I'll say it again. I'll probably say it in the future. Don't be like Mason Berry. Hit that like button on this video. Let's see. So Cheval says, petition to make PK pours beer into a glass. That stuff is not hygienic, bro. Bud Light's not hygienic? Oh, I see we got Australian Blastoise in the chat. Good to see you. Australian Blastoise called me out. I guess if you guys haven't had a chance, I had Peaked Out Chew on Friday night. He joined a live, and during that live, we were talking about Blastoise kids. One of the kids that was at the Tropical Mega Battle Tour was like a huge competitive player. Him and his brothers actually won the different age groups. But during that live, I called him Australian Blastoise because of shout out to Australian Blastoise in this chat. So that was pretty funny. No clue I even did it, but he realized, obviously, because it's his name, and then like highlighted in the chat, and I went back and watched it. I was like, whoa. So that was pretty funny. Steven Collectible says, I invest in Open Modern. Yeah. Let's see. Cheval says, if you lost money, if you're down, you are the problem. Thanks for feeding my depression, PK. That's what I need. Sorry. Oh no, Chevalsi has the disease that I can't say. Otherwise, my channel will get demonetized. Oh, we got Catch 'em all collectibles. Good to see you. We got a lot of big names in this chat. Good to see you guys. David Beal says, "What's up, bro? What's your honest opinion on CTR? I can tell he pisses you off sometimes. He reminds me of a frat boy that never left the frat." Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. CTR is one of my best friends in this hobby. So, like, that's just our relationship where he's not really pissing me off. He tries to piss me off, but I also try to piss him off. It's just a lot of give or take. But no, when it comes to Pokemon hobby and people I talk about, maybe not talk to, but maybe not on a daily basis, but one of the people that I'm not afraid to reach out to and just, strike up a conversation about anything. CTR is one of those guys. So to answer your question, CTR doesn't piss me off. He's actually like one of my top favorite people in this entire hobby. So one thing you will find out about Ryan, that is the dude is he's got a huge heart, man. He's really caring. He might not always show it, but he's a big softie. But I think once everybody realizes that, then it like opens up a whole nother level to him. He's a good guy. So yeah, definitely one of my best friends in this hobby. Him, Rattle. I am very grateful and I'm happy every single podcast, like to have both those guys on. The fact that I'm co-hosting a podcast with those two of my favorite people. Rattle, I'd probably talk to honestly more than anybody in this hobby, especially through his Discord, through private messages, stuff like that. So yeah, both those guys are top notch. I think it's a shame that some people, don't watch all Rattle's videos. I think as recently as just the other day, Rattle made a video. It was like a follow-up video. Somebody was like, "Hey, this guy scammed me. Have you heard of him, or can you make a video about it?" And then all Rattle did was literally send him a link of the video that already existed about the guy that scammed him. And it's like, man, people are getting scammed, and it's like that movie Groundhog's Day. It's the same scam over and over again. And if somebody had just watched that video, maybe they would have, saved themselves $1,000+. IVR said, "There's no law that says you can't open Pokemon cards while driving." Yeah, let's test that law. Oh boy. And that was the last text she sent. Ivy says, "Beckett 10 Moonbrown is my #1 chase card." Black Star. Ivy, if you want to do the Black Star hunt, you got to do it yourself. You got about a 5% Black Star Black Label rate. So if you want to go for the Moonbrown, do it. Oh, that is the hardest yet scariest yet most rewarding. Oh my God. I'll tell you what, hands down to every single person out there who did do that, who sent their Moonbrowns to Beckett, hit Black Labels. I mean, the Black Label premiums on Moonbrowns are crazy. And listen, I would have sent that to PSA. If I had that same exact card, the card that would have, if I sent it to Beckett, would have hit a Black Label and would have sold for like a 6x of what I could have sold the PSA 10 for. I still would have sold it to I still would have sent it to PSA, got my Surefire 10, and then I told you I don't even know what I would do with this card at this point. If I pulled it, I'd probably just keep it because I'm freaking nuts and that card's nuts and I have no clue what that card's gonna do. I love to watch it, and if I pulled it myself out of $5 pack and spent $50 or $30 a grade at whatever the upcharge on a PSA 10 Moonbrown would be, I'd probably just keep it because I'm freaking nuts. And that's probably back to the title of this video, like the addiction, where ask me when that set first came out if I pulled that Moonbrown, if I was holding on to it, and my answer to you would be no. Now, am I a buyer of that card raw at $500? Hell no. Am I a buyer at that card at PSA 10 for whatever it's selling at? Double hell no. Not a chance am I a buyer for that card. But if I pulled it out of a $5 Evolving Skies pack, like, ooh, that would be a tough one. I'd have to think about it. But that's where you blur that line of collector, investor, and then whoever's holding on to that card. I don't know what you are at this point. You're something. Maybe you're a combination. You're crazy, stupid. I would be stupid. That would probably be stupid. That would be the right answer for that. We got 116 viewers, and we are currently sitting at 72 likes. Do not be like Mason Berries. We got CPR in the chat. Just said hookers and cocaine. I don't know what he's talking about. Let's see. Let's see. $5,000. Try to make 5,000 starting with $500 investment when you can make 5,000. Oh, I can't even read that comment. There's a lot to go on there. Let's see. PK truth bombs greater than Z&G truth bombs. Oof, that's not true. Nobody gives a truth bomb like Z&G. I had a good live with Z&G with James. And I said at the very end, I was like, James, hit it with a truth bomb. And he did. I made a little short out of it. So if you haven't watched that, go on my channel. On my videos, there's a lot of highlights. I think for a while, I was just flooding my feed with different highlights of different lives because I had so much content that I could have did. And then I decided to like pull it back. And now I just got like a huge file folder on my computer, which is a bunch of those videos already pre-processed, just ready to roll. You guys want to see those again? I can start releasing them again, but maybe I won't release them like every day. I'm pretty sure I released like 50 videos in a row. And then people were just like, all right, PK, like chill the freak out. We've already seen all these lives. Let's see. Oh, speak of the man, we got Echo-based collectibles in. The buyer of bags. The great my new favorite person in this hobby who could buy the bags and sell the bags. Hopefully he could sell the bags. All right. I got to the bottom of the chat. Probably skipped a bunch of crap. But listen, I did it. Made it to the 1 hour and 15-minute mark. And you did it. You didn't hit the like button. That's okay. You're like Mason Berry. I'll remember that. But for everyone else out there, everyone who did hit that like button, people that actually do care, appreciate every single one of you guys. Listen, I understand the addiction issue is might be a tough subject, and there's probably some people are going to actually hate this video. And if you hate this video, maybe it hits too close to home. But listen, it's not too late. This is a long hobby. We go on from now till forever. Me personally, a lot of people like to make their arguments that they think Pokemon is this temporary fly-by-night thing, that it's not going to last for a long time. And then people give their 5-year projections, 10 years projections of when this hobby is going to be gone. And I'm going to tell you, no, I am too invested, both financially, emotionally, mentally. I don't believe Pokemon's going away in 5 years. I don't believe it's going away in 10 years, not on just the track it's going now. Where we are in 5 years, where we are in 10 years, I'm not really sure, but I just know this hobby's going to be here. And I hope this channel's here. I hope every single one of you guys are here. And I hope that the decisions you are making today set you up for success in 5 years, 10 years from now. So if you have made some mistakes and you have made some unhealthy addiction issues in this hobby, it's not too late. That's one beautiful thing about this hobby. And the beautiful thing above all other things is you have time on your side right now. Time can heal all if you're smart now today and you set yourself up for success in the future. And that's what I do believe. And I probably will always believe that. But I can't hold your hand. Nobody in this chat could hold your hand. Nobody you could reach out to could hold your hand. You have to make that decision. You have to, determine what trajectory you're going to have in this hobby. That's on you, man. That's not on me. But if you're making mistakes now, change them. That's it. That's my only answer. Change. Stop what you're doing. Change it. Be better. Be better. Everyone should be better. You wake up every day and you do a little bit better than the day before in this hobby, time's going to be really, really nice to you. All right, guys. Appreciate every single one of you guys. Hit that like button. Don't be like Mason Berry, and I'll catch you on the next video.